I know you plant people, so we'll try and spin the story around plants. But I'm also going to spin it around the journey, the spiritual journey. Because as much as people say it doesn't matter what path you're on as long as the path has a heart, and it's all about being on the path and not going anywhere, well, those are people that haven't gone anywhere. You actually find that the path does lead somewhere and you do go somewhere. And so I've spent the last years trying to find out what are all the steps. What steps are necessary, because very often you take a group of people along and then suddenly you lose half of them. They can't do the next exercise. So I realized, oh, well, there's something's missing here. There's another step. So slowly I've added all the steps, and now I usually get 9 out of 10 people into heaven by the end of 3 days. Which some people say it's impossible, but actually it's a pretty high percentage. And you can actually measure it. I don't know if you know Power versus Force, that book, where you can measure people's frequency. As you go through the workshop, it goes up and up. And almost everybody lands with a frequency of over 700 on the end of the 3rd day, which is enlightenment. You have a sense of enlightenment, definitely. So it really gets somewhere. And the plants help us with that. So when you go for training in the African people, with African people, the first thing they will tell you is, get down on your knees. They don't say you must be humble. They give you a physical exercise that actually makes you experience it. So, and they don't have a belief system because it's experience-based. So you either experience it or you don't. So there's nothing to argue about. So this is very important. But now also, you get 2 main groups of African systems here. The one in the north is all about the ancestors, and to reach them they usually use fire, smoke, incense. But even in the West, we will light a candle for the dead. So it's about burning. So in other words, there is a route into spirit through death. And that's usually associated with burning. Then there's another route into the other world through birth. That's full of life. So I know in the West mostly people say, well, eternity is from now to the end. But there's also from now to the beginning. So there are 2 different routes you can take. And so in the Cape, where we have a tradition from the San, the Bushman people, which got incorporated into the Xhosa tradition. So the Xhosa have 3 clicks out of the 5 clicks from the Bushman. And the name for the healers are the same name as in the San people. So the name is Igqirha, as opposed to Sangoma, which is the people in the north of South Africa. So Igqirha, I means a person. Qi is the same as the Chinese Qi, which is also spelled Qi. So Qi is life energy, and Kha is full of. So the person full of life energy is a Igqirha. So it's very different from a Sangoma. So a Sangoma is basically a medium. So they allow other things to talk through them. Whereas Igqirha is like a shaman. They go on journeys. They go on dreams. They go and find out in the underworld what's going on. So it's a very different system. So in the Igqirha system, the very first thing they do is to try and open your mind. And you can't open your mind if you're bitter about life. So you get washed in aloe juice. Very physical, very straightforward. Put the bitters on the outside, and then your bitter comes to the surface. And then you wash it off, and your bitter is gone. And all of a sudden, you see everything as an opportunity, not as a problem. So of course you get lucky. So that's the first step. And it also works very well for women. If the baby doesn't want to suckle from the woman, she's probably bitter. So put the bitters on, let her sleep, wash it off in the morning, and the baby drinks. So all very practical plant-based processes. The second thing they wash you in is the white Mantis. Mantis albifloss, I'm sure you know it. Grows all over the country. Even in the Karoo, under the bushes. Under the little thorn bushes you find a lot of it. Now that one is a very strange thing because it opens your mind. So if you, for instance, were to do a regression and you put it on your forehead, then you will see what you saw in the regression superimposed on this time at the same time. It's very amazing. And you see the links between lifetimes. So it really opens up your mind. And then the next thing they do is they say, right, so now you know there really is another world. But now, it's dangerous to go into the other world unless you have 3 conditions. So they take you through processes of 3 conditions. And those conditions are, the first one is they give you a nice tea which they call umshlonitshwa. And umshlonitshwa isn't in any of the Whitey's books because they think it's a disease to become humble. But if you want to smell humility, smell it and pass it on. Humility is very important because humility cures a whole lot of things that you would hardly think possible. So, just to compare it with another system, Carlos Castaneda, who wrote those interesting books, who people said, well, they never really happened. But the fact is, always 6 months before it did appear in anthropological writings. So he took the latest writings and he put it in a nice story. And what he said, one of the things that he quoted was that Don Juan had told him, there are 4 enemies to the person of knowledge. And the first enemy is fear. So the question is, where does fear come from? Fear comes from anger. And so if you're angry, fear will follow it. So where does anger come from? Anger comes from self-importance. So if you're self-important, you'll have anger, you'll have fear. So if you can do something about your self-importance, you won't have fear anymore. So this is one of the herbs used to get rid of self-importance. So it's called humility. It's also called student dacha. But it works exactly opposite to what dacha does. Dacha will make you feel important. This does not make you feel important. And because you don't feel important, you don't have to keep your pose. So there's no stress. So it's 10 times better for stress than sclerotium. Forget all the other things. This is the anti-stress thing. So humility. And humility doesn't mean lesser than, it means equal to. So the whole idea is to be equal to everybody and everything. If you're equal, you can make friends with everybody. If you put somebody on a pedestal, you can't make friends with them. If you think they're below you, you can't make friends with them. But if you're equal, you can make friends with everybody. And you can talk to them. You can have conversations. And if you're really equal, you can talk to the devil himself. And ask him, well, why are you here? What do you want? You don't need a book. Somebody claims might be right and get confused about people and generalize. No, you can talk to them yourself and find out what's going on. So what does the Topolosh want? What does the Impundulu want? What's the Mamlambo want? Talk to them. And you find out for yourself. So then it's not anybody's opinion. You don't have to believe anything. You either know it or you don't. But now the question is, how do you be equal? It's very difficult to be equal if you're in your head. And most people in our society are in their head. And people say, yes, you must work from the heart, but they don't tell you how to get there. Because if you're in your heart, you can feel equal. So besides taking that nice, humble tea, there's another very simple way. And that is if you get on your knees. If you stand upright on your knees, you'll feel that you're in your heart. Just try it. It's really amazing. You feel you're in your heart. And if you're not so sure about it, you get up and you see you're back in your head again. And you're back in your heart again. Do it a couple of times just to really see how it shifts. So we've got to learn to think of more than our heads. We've got to actually feel with our whole body. You feel how it moves. And from this position on your knees, it's very easy to feel equal. And so this is the whole point. So the first year of training with the indigenous tribes here, you spend most of your time on your knees. So it's a 4-year course, yeah? So the first year you're on your knees so that you can feel equal. And the second year you're allowed to do this. Yeah? And then you're even allowed to do this. You see? So every time they talk about spirit, you like this, second year. Third year you can do that. Fourth year you can stand up. But after having done that for 3 years, you'll stand up and you'll still be in your chest. So that's the training. You see, you get pupils. Those are the kinds of children usually. You shine any light into them and they close up. That's what a pupil does. Then they become students. And they study something. You must study food. Yeah? Well, actually, if you eat it, you find out what it's about. So, in the end, it's about what you do. And that means self-discipline. So a disciple is actually the only one who finds out how it works. So you have to discipline yourself every day, stand on your knees, and feel what is it that's happening to you. That you're on your heart. So this is the first step, is to overcome your self-importance. And we have lovely examples of that. Why do you think Mandela could remember everybody's names? He didn't just remember the hoi polloi. Everybody, because for him, everybody was equal. And the people said, oh, look how humble he is. Because humility is being equal. And there's an ideal plant here that you can use to feel this. And this plant for us here in the southern hemisphere also deals with water and the south. So the south is probably there, is that right? Somebody said the east was over there. But we need to orientate ourselves also, you see. So in the south, that's usually the first process, and that is the water. It's blue, and it's a snake, and it's fear. So people often who dream of snakes are terribly afraid in their dreams. But in the Chinese system, it's the kidneys and the bladder, the blue water and the bladder. So it's all related to the water. And this humidity grows where there is plenty of water, moving water. And if it gets too dry, it very quickly dries out the whole plant, the whole tree. So it's something about water. And bladders, bubbles, blisters, itchy things. So for all itchy diseases, water, retention, blisters, this medicine works. Even chicken pox, you name it, any blister, fantastic remedy. So that's one of your basic remedies in South Africa.
What is the name of it?
What's the botanical name?
Botanical name. Soralia pinnata.
Oh, I thought so.
And you can get it here in bottles.
Are you called? That's for common. Okay.
So yes, this is a really amazing, on many levels, plant. The second plant I'd like to talk to you about, you probably all know, courage.
Sorry?
Called courage. Legano? Courage? Umshlonyane? Courage? So why must they translate it as African Artemisia? When in fact, all the other languages call it courage, because actually it works on the liver. And people say, well, do you have the gall to do it? Do you have the courage? No. So there's a fantastic remedy that supports the liver. Quite a few remedies that one can use will be quite poisonous to the body. Like Khayelitsha, Kraalbos, Galena Africana, I don't know if you know it. They use it all the way up the west coast. It grows everywhere into all the dry areas. And everywhere where you made a kraal, a sheep, you find it growing. Now that's very poisonous, but it kills a lot of germs and all kinds of diseases. But it will poison your liver. So if you just mix it with courage, you're fine. The courage makes a lot of other things possible. So it's a very important one. So if you doubt, you don't have the courage to go through with it, your body gets cold. So guess what? It works for colds and flu. Very, very well. To overcome your doubt. If you overcome your doubt, you can actually cure your flu very, very quickly yourself. But you've got to be in that courageous state. That's what's important. So there's this courage. And now, Carlos Castaneda said, oh, the second enemy to the person of knowledge is clarity. So now, how do you understand that? Well, when you hear somebody say, actually, all you need is love. And you realize, yeah, but, it didn't fix my cold and it didn't fix my arthritis. No, it's generalizing. And so when you generalize, it sounds so terribly simple and clear. So clarity prevents you from finding more knowledge. Instead of investigating everything and all the different things, it becomes clarity. Oh no, just one. And so you don't learn more than one thing. And you get stuck there. So it takes a lot of courage to let go of the one thing you know. and start investigating that there's possibly lots of other things and each within its own parameters. So this thing works within that parameter, something else works in that. So you go around and you find out what's the parameters within which everything works. For instance, they say, yes, now you've got a cold and flu. What stage are you? Right in the beginning, you're cold. It doesn't matter how many blankets you put on, it's cold. But if you drink a cup of cancer bush tea that is less than a year old, immediately within 10 minutes your whole body warm. So it's a very good cure for flu at that stage. If you have, for instance, a flu coming on and you can't put your chin on your chest, it hurts in the back of your neck, you should be sure if you leave that, you're going to have meningitis. But the tissue salt, nat salt, will stop that within 10 minutes if you catch it in the beginning. So by knowing which thing works in which stage and which particular symptom, it's very quick to fix it. But you must be open and have the courage to look. Okay, now what sort of symptoms do you all get? And at what stage? Now when you're at the stage where you lie in the bed and please don't bother me, I'm just exhausted, I'm finished. You get a plant that does that, it lies on the ground, flat leaves like this, it's got thorns on the leaves. Moedertroos, I'm sure you know that. Well, in the Cape they grow a lot. I mean, they actually grow on the sidewalk in Knysna everywhere.
What is it called?
Moedertroos. Because, yeah, you just feel like you need mother's sympathy. And then you get one that grows up on the mountains in the Jantjieskraal, Igqirha. And Igqirha grows there where the water drips off the mountain. So for a post-nasal drip, this is just the best medicine. So it's amazing at how they look and where they work. And that you realize a cold isn't just a cold, is it? Well, no. There are different stages and different symptoms. So knowing which one to work. So this is why you need a witch. Because which one do you need now? Yeah, good. So there's a lot of things, but the main one is you have the courage to change your limited vision. So that is umshlonyane. And the colored people will say, no, it's not wille als, it's wilde alles. Because you can treat alles with it. Then you get the third remedy, the heart remedy, red chocolate. Now there's a heart remedy in South Africa that will stop stroke. It will make your heart muscle stronger and the muscles of all your arteries stronger. Very strong. But don't take too much because then your bones get soft because you're making too much blood. Because the blood in the bones come out of your long bones. The blood comes out, there's the soft in the middle, the hard is the bone on the outside. There's a separation of land and sea. It's a bit like the part of Genesis, about how they made. So the blood is made soft, bone is made hard. So there's a separation of hardness. Now you find some people that hate their ancestors. And then they get blood clots all over their body. Because they're trying to put hatred into what should be soft. But the bone is made of hatred. So if you don't bite enough, the teeth don't get hard. They fall out. So for most things there is a function. So hatred actually makes your teeth and your bones hard. And compassion makes your blood soften. Yeah, anyway. This plant here, it works here. I know, you know that one with the little orange flowers that hang like that? The Villadagga?
Oh yeah.
Leonotis?
You know.
Why is Leonotis called lion's ears? People say, oh, but you know, it looks more like lion's tails. But that's the white people who always describe how something looks. So even pinata is called pinata because the leaves are like little pins. So they call it by name of what it looks like. Whereas Michwa is about humility. That's what it does. So this does courage. This one does power. Now I'm sure you've all seen Ice Age. Remember that lion chasing the bokkie? And he's all out of breath, yeah? And the little buck runs around him and says, you can't catch me. Because the buck's got power. The lion's got courage, but he hasn't got the power. He wants that power. Now what does he do to the power plant? He rubs his ears in it like a cat does to catnip. But now that we don't have lions running around in our gardens with the Villadagga, you don't see that. So people think, oh, well, yeah, it should be lion's tail. Because they haven't seen what a lion does to this plant. So that's power. And power corrupts. So the third enemy is power. So power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, unless you've learned how to overcome power. So if somebody asks you, like Don one asked Carlos Castaneda, you should really take your cups and saucers for a drive around the block. Will you be able to do that? Does it make any sense at all?
Yeah.
That's the whole point. You can't do anything that doesn't make sense to you. You are so corrupt, you only have to support your own consensus reality. You see how corruption works. We think that politicians corrupt when he steals some money. But we can't do anything that doesn't make sense to us. It's hectic. We are so corrupt. So that is what you need to be able to do. How do you expect to work for spirit which wants you to do something that is not in your interest? You can't. Everybody claims, yes, they're going to work for spirit, but when the day comes, they're so corrupt, they only can do what helps their idea of reality. And to actually get over that is a major step. And then the fourth thing is the eagle, the air. You know where you get a stitch when you don't breathe deeply enough when you go for a run? The air. They say it's the spleen, whatever. But it's the point of air. You start breathing deeply, the pain goes away. So the air is normally considered white, represented by an eagle, and the air plant is blindblaar wit essenhout. I'll show you. It's Isindyandia. Isindyandia means do not hesitate. Because when you hesitate, everything is lost. And why would you hesitate? Because you haven't got focus. So this is the thing. If you hold this up in the sunlight, it is shimmering, shiny with crystals all over. So you can recognize this anywhere you buy it, from a muti shop. You don't have to worry about it. If you hold it in the sun, just say, just checking outside. you will see it's absolutely shiny with crystals. I don't think you'll see it yet.
What's the Zulu? What's the indigenous?
Isindyandia.
Isin?
Isindyandia.
Isin.
And that makes you feel like you're flying. Take it. Even if you just grate a little powder off and take it, you feel like the wind in your face. You have no hesitation, you just go. And the whole point with the eagle, he's flying way up there, and there's a little rabbit under the bush. Now he wanted to try to frighten it out. So he flaps his wings here, like a kite, and the shadow, because he's in front of the sun, the shadow makes light and dark in the bush until the little rabbit freaks, and then he bolts, he runs. Now he's got to dive bomb that thing and catch it. So there's no time for hesitation. If you don't keep your eye on there and you're not unfocused, then it runs and you haven't noticed it ran away. So you've got to focus. And focus means also that if you go into the other worlds, you will not be distracted. You know, the children were distracted, eating cookies and what have you in the forest, all the stories, because they were not keeping focus. So these are the 4 enemies to the person who wants to go into the other world. And they are also the 4 virtues. In other words, the first virtue is humility. The second virtue is courage. The third virtue is being able to store power. The fourth one is being able to focus. If you can't do those 4 things, what are you going to do? Say you're missing humility. You go into the other world, the first demon or dragon you see, you're going to freak out. Or, yeah. So you take anything like ayahuasca that takes you out of this, and you're still afraid. Guess what? You're going to be freaked out. So you're going to come back with post-traumatic syndrome. So, what's the point of that? So you must overcome your fear first. Then you go in there and you blame everybody. It's not my fault. So you blame some great big being that's 100 times stronger than you. Guess what he's going to do? Crush! Because you attacked him by being arrogant and telling him what to do. Because you think you're so wonderful. No, it doesn't work. I've seen people come back from a trip, walking on all 4s, barking like a dog. It's really true. They bark like a dog. Mad as a barking dog. It really happens. And then, oh no, but they're so humble. And then you talk to them and you talk, and then suddenly they say, oh, but I've got the best religion. Hang on, I thought you were humble. No humility. If you don't have humility really in all spheres of your life, you're not humble. Dangerous to go. So, the first one is humility. The second one is blaming. You have to realize that your life is created by your decisions. Whatever you decide creates your life. You know, the world is like Kentucky. You put in your order, and then Kentucky tries to produce it for you. You go around to the other window and you collect. So people say, well, they'll see what life brings to them. Well, they put in their order and life's only going to produce what they ordered. But they think life does something else. And oh, you know, this is a terrible place, and those people were horrible, and those people were good. They're blaming everybody. But actually, you have to overcome blame before you go into the spirit world. It doesn't work there. And the third thing is thinking that you have power and you are more powerful than others. And you must stand in your power. How can you stand in your power? It's like standing in the river. You think it's the same water around your legs all the time? It's flowing past. So children are very impressed with, they want to be a fireman, because there he stands and he's squirting all this water over the mountain, over the burning buildings and everything, right? Look how powerful he is. But do you think he's throwing the water? He's only only holding the pipe. The engine's back there pumping like crazy. But he looks like he's powerful. In the same way, we may appear powerful when something flows through us. But we can't stand in it. We can't hold it back. If you hold it back, you go black. You're evil. That's what evil is. It's just selfishness. Nothing else. So you have to realize it goes through you. You can be a channel for it. You can't hold it for yourself. If you try, it goes stagnant. So there's no such thing as standing in the path. That's a total illusion. Okay, so now you've overcome the power. Now you must overcome the focus. You must keep the focus. If you go sightseeing in the spirit world, somebody's going to mug you, like they do to all tourists, you know, the tourists get mugged. You go, look, oh, what's so pretty here? So you must go into the spirit world for a specific reason. Keep your focus. What are you going to do there? What is the question? You can't go in there for a general look around. You're going to get punished. So these are the 4 conditions. And for that one, you see it's like the flight of the bird. Focus. This is why you use that Sindhyandia, because it goes straight for it. Go in there, find your answer, come back. Quick. And you can only do that with a wonderful plant called Ubulao. And you can buy them right here. And this is what this root looks like. I can show you. You get different kinds, like that one. When it's a little bit fresher, it has broad leaves like tobacco leaves on it. And you can have a look at those. And then you get the other one. He has a dry form of it. And this is a green form of it. It works just as well as this one, but this is what they call the Bushman Ubulao. And it's actually family of the carnation. And both these make a very stable, wonderful powder. And so they wash you clean. Because one of the problems is, if you want to go and see, it's best to clean the windscreen wiper, right? Imagine you trying to see into somebody else, and the windscreen wiper is dirty. Now you can't even see out of the car, and then you've got to look through his windscreen wiper to try and see him. So it's like a whole process. So the more you can wash, the better. And so basically you wash in that, or you eat the foam for 3 days, and the 3rd day you wash with it, and you start a new batch. And that opens the doors. That when you decide, okay, I'm now going to find out what the first incidence of this current sequence of traumas is, then you go to that. Because now you've decided, this is what I'm going to do. And you eat that stuff, and the door's open, so it's easy. So you can go through an imagination of setting up protection for your body and for the doorway that you open to go into the other world. Then you go through the reverse of the creative process of the Chinese. In other words, instead of the water feeding the plant, the tree, which makes the wood for the fire, which burns and makes the ash for the soil, which turns into stone, which goes back into water and ground, you do the reverse of that. So you start with a tree. So most cultures have some form of wood. So they might go, like the Greeks, take the ferry, wooden boat, over the river Styx, the water, to the stones, the caves where the Python is going to give them guidance. So in the same way, you can go into a tree, imagine going down through the roots, getting into the Great Lake, moving up to the rocks, and there you wait for your guide to appear to you, which is like a fire. So it's a reverse process. And if you do it like that, you get there every time. Otherwise, if you just want to go to that world and you can jump into it, like many people do, there comes a time in your life where you can't jump. And suddenly you can't get there anymore. So it's good to learn a path that is consequential, develops your imagination to the point of seeing. But that is very good. So basically, one can be taught this process of going, and then you go into the underworld. And there you find out that you have made all kinds of contracts for suffering. Because, unfortunately, humanity thinks that we can't gain anything if we don't suffer. No pain, no gain. As long as you stick to this no pain, no gain thing, you're going to create karma. So the laws of karma is actually your law of no pain, no gain. You created that yourself too. So if you give that up, you can actually switch to saying, well, what was I trying to teach myself with this contract? And then you say, oh, well, actually, there's one of these virtues I wanted to teach myself. And then you say, well, why not just practice the virtue? Then you don't cause any trauma to yourself anymore. So, what happens? You don't lose parts of your soul anymore, which leaves gaps in you for ghosts to climb in. It's one thing to take the ghost out, but you still got a hole, because part of your soul ran away. But if you stop the trauma, you can actually get the pieces back. Now many shamans say, oh, we'll do soul retrieval for you and blow it into your ear or something. And all very well, but it's not going to stay with you, because you haven't changed your contract. So it's absolutely essential that you find out how does the contract cause your trauma, so that you can see what is it that you're trying to teach yourself. So if you read Belalda's book on from South America, he writes a very nice thing about mending the past and healing the future with soul retrieval. It's the best book I've seen on soul retrieval. But it doesn't go all the way. It doesn't go to why, what are we trying to teach ourselves? It doesn't include that. So I've been working for the last 5 years trying to figure out what those things are. And I finally came up with 17. The same 17 unstable states that you have in the periodic table of chemicals. So the 18th period, the 18th ones are noble gases. So the other 17 unstable states, each period has to do with another thing, very specifically. Like in the first period, what do you have? Lithium, potassium, sodium, all things that work in the nerves. Your nerves work better with potassium and sodium, right? That's how they work. With the switching of the sodium and potassium in the nerve, that's how the current runs down your nerves. And if it doesn't want to work it properly, guess what? The doctors give you lithium, which is another one in the same period. So that one works in that. The next period, for instance, has magnesium and calcium. That's how your muscles work. They contract with calcium and they release with magnesium. So it's all to do with the muscles. And the next one's with your tendons, and so it goes on. So each one of those things have particular kinds of diseases and particular kinds of problems, and particular kinds of attitudes. So I found that there are 17 wrong attitudes. So if you have that attitude, you get the disease of that life. And the person who actually worked out the diseases is Dr. Jan Scott. He worked out this process. And all I did is I was looking for what are the virtues that represent the healing of that process. When we do the workshop, I help the people to find their particular one and to see how to put that particular one as the new contract. And then, of course, there's no trauma for your soul and all the parts come back. So now that you're whole again, finally, you can go to heaven and see something there. So the thing is that now that we've dealt with the contract on earth, which is called fate or karma, we now want to find out what is our contract in heaven. And our contract in heaven is what we decided to come and do on earth. Before we were born, we planned it. But like most things, we're very forgetful. So you know, when you walk out of the kitchen where you decided, oh, I'm short of salt, I must remember to buy salt. You walk out of the kitchen and, what was that again? Oh, the only way to find out is you rush back in the kitchen. Of course, yes, because the salt is in the kitchen. And we're not connected to it anymore. So there are breathing exercises with which you can connect to that, so that you don't forget when you walk out of that place. But in the meantime, the easiest way to remember it is to go back into exactly the place where you made it. So you go back into the sitting room with your celestial parents where you planned your time on earth. And of course, then you remember immediately why you came to earth. And you remember it as far normally as when you are born. As soon as you're born, forget it. So in West Africa, where they are much more civilized than we are, the mother is put into a trance before the birth of the baby. So the baby can talk to the whole family and tell them why it's coming, what its capacities are, what its talents are, what education it needs to develop those, what name it should be called, to remind it of its job, what it's coming to do on earth. All those things. We have no clue. But if you go back to heaven, you can go and find out for yourself what your problem is. So it's not my opinion or anybody else's opinion. You can go and look for yourself. That's the point. And if you go and look for yourself, then you know. And then we can go further. We can go to the next heaven of the angels and saints and whatever. And there is a model of humanity's development. And then if you ask them nicely, they will show you where your contribution fits into the bigger picture of one of the aspects of the development of humankind. So then you see, oh yes, of course, this is wonderful that I'm trying to do, because it'll help this whole development. So you come back very much more motivated. So that's great. And to be able to get to that next level, you meet someone between the human heaven and the angelic heaven. Something that will surprise you to your core. You will meet your higher self. Because at that place where it exists, if you meet it there, where it is in its full glory, you will realize why so little of it incarnated as you. There's no way that that being could fully incarnate you. You're just like a finger of this massive being. You come up to not even the kneecap of this amazing being. And that's my job, to introduce you to that being, your higher self. Because once you connect to that being, your consciousness will be over 700. You will basically be enlightened. You will know why you're here. You will know what's going on. Anyway, the plants help a little bit in the beginning. And the Oolao helps altogether, because it makes you aware of going to these places. And you're not going to them without preparation. So there's no black magic involved. Black magic is basically taking you into the spirit world unprepared. So any drug that forces you in there and you're not ready because you haven't developed humility, you haven't developed courage, you haven't developed power, the use of power properly, you haven't developed focus. Without those four things, it's actually dangerous to go in. And if you want to see more detail about it, it's very interesting. There's a very nice Disney movie out at the moment, called The Rise of the Guardians. And you'll see they even color-coded in exactly the right way. And you must really listen to the dialogue between them, and you'll see precisely what those four aspects are about. Any other questions?
Where do we sign up?
What was that?
Where do we sign up?
I just make a deposit for Friday. Then we know, yeah. No, come and talk to me. I basically can take about 12 people at a time because I've got to fix yours as well.
So Peter, is this the way to get to talk to your ancestors once you call again? Is that how you get to talk to your ancestors?
Your ancestors? Yeah, the moment you've done those first four stages, you actually have access to your ancestors. But then when you go to heaven, you have access to the bigger plans, to what you intended to do before you were born. So your spiritual aspect, in other words, you'll meet your spiritual parents as well. As much as we have physical parents, we have spiritual parents, as well as ancestors who provided you with a physical body. Sorry, not a physical body, a material body, which we borrow from nature. There's a very big difference between the spiritual body, the physical body, and the material body. And that's the whole point of old age. We're doing a practice run on creating our own physical body. So as the material body starts to disintegrate, we've got to try and replace it with our own physical resurrection body. So, yeah, don't go around measuring old people, they got to work. No, the physical. But the physical body can manifest physically as much as it can dematerialize. Because it's not material, it's physical.
I'm going to try and speak up, but I've got a very sensitive vocal cord,
Okay.
and sometimes it disappears, so if I'm nervous,
Okay.
it's gone. You spoke about the 18 attitudes, okay, that you've been studying the virtues.
Yeah.
Is that purely from a healing of a disease aspect, or is that connected to the other world that you're mentioning as well? Because what I actually wanted to know is, besides the 18 attitudes that are presumably healing various ailments and things, is there an attitude or a virtue that you can obtain which is like pure vitality, which is sort of like a complete healing in your human body?
No, the original idea was that in the 9th century, Arthur and the Round Table, they were looking for the Grail. And you know what the Grail is short for? The gradual development of virtues. So, the whole idea is that if I hold out my finger and I ask for wine, what's going to happen? It's going to pour over it. Yeah? So if I have one virtue, not really that useful. But if you have a whole bunch, now you can make a cup. So the Grail cup is really that if you have developed a whole lot of virtues, together they make a Grail. They make something which can catch the spirit. And really you want to catch the spirit. So it's actually, in the periodic table, there are 18 periods, but the last one is completely stable. Those are the noble gases. So you find them in lamps and things because stuff, when they're in that gas, won't burn. So it's the 17 unstable states that lead up to the 18, which are representing the diseases. But it's also wrong thinking. So there's a delusion of wrong thinking. But the overall main one is no pain, no gain, because it causes all the others. But those 17 things are interesting because when King Arthur, the knights, the 12 knights, you see, each took on one of the zodiac signs. So there were basically 12. So what you start out with as the 4 directions of the medicine wheel, there's another 2 in between each of those, and that makes the 12. But now we have more trauma. There's also the trauma of going down, death. People are afraid of death, going out of this world. And then in the underworld there are 4 chambers. And those 4 chambers are actually addressed by the Ho'oponopono saying.
I'm not familiar with.
So you'll find that that agrees too. So what I've done is I've actually written this all up. It's on my website. And Igqirha. And you can see it there. But I have a few little books here too, if you want it on paper. I have a couple of these little blue books, which is the Holy Grail Virtues that bring health. So I talk about all of them. I do a course on them as well, but not the one I'm doing this weekend. But you'll meet some of them on this weekend, as many people as come. They usually not all have the same thing. But that's quite an interesting thing too. But you'll see this on the website.
What's the website? What's the website?
Zanemvula. At World Online at .co.za.
Zanemvula. Awesome, thank you.
Can I pass it on?
Yes.
Peter, why do you, Peter, do this thing with people? Why do you have these workshops where they can reach this state of being able to safely go into the other worlds and find this information about themselves? Why do you do this?
Because in another lifetime, I believed in loyalty. So I was loyal to the king, and I expected all the warriors to be loyal to me. The king sent me off to go and fight another tribe. And accidentally, I led them into an ambush. And they were all murdered. So I'm afraid of leading people into things without going there first. So I went there myself, and I don't want to give people an opinion or something. They must see it for themselves. So I try to empower them to see it for themselves. And that's part of the reason why I don't want many more than 12 people at a time, because I find that if I sit in the midst of them, they will see. They can borrow my energy to see if they can't do it on their own yet. But at least they see their own stuff. And it's important that they experience things, and it's not an opinion. It's not my opinion or other shaman's opinion or whatever. It's for them to experience. Outcome-based education. Can they do it? Yeah. So this is why the first day and a half is spent on just preparing people to really have insight on these 4 basic things.
So the people who come to your workshop need to be prepared to undergo a fundamental transformation.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they tend to say. They come and they say, but why do we have to work so hard? I said, well, that's why I call it a workshop. Yes, they fundamentally change. But the most important thing about that is they see other people doing it. So they don't put it off, but because that other person, look, they're doing it. I must be able to do it myself, you see? And so they get drawn with the enthusiasm of the group. And then as they see things and relate to one another who also see things, there's now a consensus reality that this is real. Like the most important thing that I do to start the process is you put your hand on your shoulder. Try putting your hand on your shoulder and then on your knee. And you see how you turn it? How you turn it and put it on your shoulder? And how do you get it there? Do you think it? No. Do you feel it? No, you just do it, right? So you just do it, and the next moment, when you know exactly how you move, you put it on your shoulder without your physical hand. So you take it out of your arm, put it on there. And then try and do it with your arm again. And then try to do it without your arm. Just put your feeling arm up there. And if you've done this enough and you're now convinced that you can do it, right? You feel like you're right? Okay, now come shake the hand.
Me?
Yes, come. So what we do is you see how long does it take? Okay, now, and we shake hands, right? And then we say, now, and then just shake my feeling hand. Yeah. Then you realize it's not your imagination, you're actually doing it. Because the energy follows imagination. And then when everybody does this, everybody's eyes open up wide like that, then they all realize it's real. Yeah?
Have you ever left anybody behind? That
Yes.
not a student who can't get in?
Yeah, some of them just don't do it.
That's very comforting.
But I generally get 9 out of 10 now to come along. I've only had 3 people walk out for the last 10 years. They're not bad. Do you want more? I can tell you about an interesting thing. I went to a conference long ago in Port Elizabeth, and there were traditional healers there, and there were a professor of pharmacology and his students there, and they were going to try and work together. And so I gave them a talk about the 4 kinds of medicine. So there are basically 4 kinds of medicine. Let's see if I can. What did I do with that? So, for instance, you can use this and
By what? Chewing it?
yeah, just chew a little piece, or you can grate it off and put it a teaspoon of that in a cup of boiling water and drink it. And why would women really do good with one of these? Because when the period starts and the cervix doesn't open, it's very painful. You take this, the pain's gone away immediately, and it can flush. Not only does it make them happier and more functional, but so everybody's happy they're taking it. But the most important thing is because it's not closed, you don't get endometriosis. Because if it's blocked and it's trying to come out, it starts back flushing through the fallopian tube, and all those cells go and land up on your insides and start growing there, and then you've got serious problems. So here is a chemical that directly has an effect of an uncramping process. So that's the same as the Western medicine, a chemical that does something in your body. So painkillers and all those kind of things fall into this group as well. One kind of medicine. Now you get another kind of medicine which, like we talked about courage, you know, Willa Als, you make tea of it, and so you get, when you make tea, it teaches your body something. So you repeatedly drink the tea. Like courage teaches you courage. Guess what? Child doesn't want to go to school, give them a cup of courage, off they go, no problem. Because there's another thing about it, about courage especially, that when you are sick, courage doesn't taste bitter. But if you're actually healthy, it tastes terribly bitter. So you naturally know when to stop using it, because it starts tasting bitter. Now if a child doesn't want to go to school, and he's really sick, yeah, he'll drink it, no problem, because it doesn't even taste bitter. But if he's healthy, hell, he doesn't want to drink that bitter stuff. I'd rather go to school. So that's the teaching medicine. So you'll find all the anthroposophical medicines are basically teaching medicine. That's why mostly they don't go over potency. Absolute highest potency is 20. So it's basically all like a tea. And you take it repeatedly and you teach your body something. Then of course, you get, when you take something and you stir it up in ubulao, you're diluting it and shaking it, right? But you're not shaking the bottle, you're stirring it. So you're basically doing the same thing as homeopathy. And you use one remedy at a time. You don't make a mixture. So it's actually classical homeopathy. And not only is it classical homeopathy, but they even use serial increase of potency. So it's very classical homeopathy. As best as the best goes. So here we have homeopathy with ubulao. People say, oh, but that thing, you can't extract it with water. No, but we don't use water, we use soap. It does extract. We don't use alcohol, we use soap. And then, of course, you can use it also on the fourth way, and that's the way of the spirit. So, here is something which you probably know, and for which many white people had great fear, and that's assegai. Assegai. Because the name of this thing actually means it's dead already, I'm going to throw it away. But it's not just throwing death as a spear. You chew a little bit of this, and then you spit it out and you say, it's dead already, it's got nothing to do with me. So if somebody makes a case against you, you chew a bit of this, spit it out, say it's got nothing to do with me, and guess what? They throw the case out of court. So it's really amazing medicine, but you see, you use it by telling it what you want it to do. Yeah?
Sorry, what's that name?
Assegai.
What is the African name?
Umshlaleni Shaya. It's about hitting, throwing it away. It's dead already. If you translated that exactly, you would have the right words. Yeah. And here's another one you all know. Recognize that? It's called mahime. And mahime means to stop. And this is an amazing thing for stopping stuff. Mahime. You probably know it as clivia. Take a clivia seed, chop it up fine, stir it in water, and then you sprinkle it anywhere where you don't want people to come, and you say, stop those people, stop the thieves, stop whatever you want to stop. And it's amazing. There's a guy in Cape Town who, he was in Goodwood, I think it was. He had more than 20 people every day knocking on his door, begging. And then he even had a guy coming to deliver a message that he must appear in court. And he sprayed this on 3 mornings. And for the last 5 years, he hasn't had a single knock. Within 2 days of him spraying this, It
You're
is
busy
fabulous.
deciding.
Nobody comes to his house. Never saw that guy from Kouga. It all just stopped. This is an incredible thing for stopping. So the name they give it is Mahime, which means to stop. So if you want to understand African medicine, just find out what it's called in their language. Brilliant stuff.
Peter, what was the name of the, I'm already dead, spit it out, what was the name of that one?
Yeah.
Peter, can you tell us more about your workshops, how long you are in Johannesburg, how people can interact with you?
Well, that's the best thing to interact with me at a workshop because it's the cheapest time you can get. You get 3 days for the price of 3 hours normally. So it's really worthwhile doing that because you get a lot of time to interact. So I'll take you through all these things practically with experiments, like learning how to see through an apple and all that sort of stuff.
And are you open for one-on-one sessions if people can't make it to the workshop?
Yeah, only till Thursday morning. Because Friday I'm going to be busy, and on Monday I'm going to recover, and Tuesday I'm flying back.
When can we bring you back?
Yeah, well, when there are enough people who want to go.
Fabulous.
Where are you from? Where are you from?
Cape Town.
Okay.
Muizenberg at the moment. But originally, well, in this life, I started in Joburg. Previous life, I was a hunter in Africa, South Africa still. Before that, I was I came from Kenya. I was a black man there. Before that, I was in Egypt. Before that, I was a cloud coming over from South America. Before that, I was a woman walking with my father for the Aztecs, taking stuff up and down to Peru. Before that, I was in Mexico. And yeah, then it starts getting vague.
Peter, thank you very much.
Good.
Thank you for your humility. You have a beautiful beard. I'm sure that took a long time to grow.
Yeah, it's getting shorter now. Every time I brush it, more breaks off.
Also, thank you very much for your wisdom and